this guy who was a comedian, he said he had been rich and he was happy. And he said he had been broke and he was happy. But he says being rich and being happy is more better.
I don't know. I mean, but it sounds like it, doesn't it? All right.
More better.
All right, so let's talk about your dad a little bit. So how old were you when you left Louisiana?
When I left Louisiana, I was 18.
18. So your entire childhood was in Louisiana and Mississippi, right? Or just Louisiana?
Louisiana.
Okay. What town did you grow up in?
Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge. Okay. So, what do you remember? Did you live in the same house the whole time, or did you move back and forth, or which house did you live in the most when you were in Baton Rouge?
In Baton Rouge, no, we had one house, and that house is still there. It was at that time, it was called Easy and Teddy Street in North Baton Rouge. but now they changed the name to Gracie and North 24th, right on the corner. Now, I don't know what kind of numbering system they had on the houses at that time because I never remembered an address there.
Right.
It was just Gracie and North 24th, though it was Easy and Teddy when I was there.
So, which actual street was it on? So, is that an intersection you just told me about?
The house was facing Easy Street.
Easy Street.
And North 24th was right on the corner of North 24th and
one story, two story, what?
One story. It was a shotgun house. You ever see the shotgun house?
No.
Well, you come in the front door, and that's the living room, if there was any such thing as that. And you go right on down the hall, and there was a bedroom, and or whatever number of bedrooms you had, and then you walk right into the kitchen. It was a straight shot through. That's why they call them shotgun houses. And there are many of those. If you travel throughout the South right now, you'll see a lot of shotgun houses.
So when you went to school growing up, was it close to where you lived, or?
Oh yeah, on North Street was about 4 blocks. We could walk there.
Was that elementary school? Or?
Yeah, elementary school.
Do you remember what it was called? The elementary school? Do you remember what it was called?
Well, Scott Street.
No, the name of the school.
Scott Street.
Oh, that was the name of the school?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
On North Street. Well, it was. That's the way it was.
Scott Street Elementary on North Street.
Yes.
So then is there anything interesting about any stories that you want to tell about your elementary school experience?
No, I really can't recall too much. In elementary school, it's elementary, the young kids running around doing stupid things, Nothing exciting.
So then,
were you a model student?
Was I a model? Well, I've always been quite astute. I had a lot of savvy. I didn't have any mental blocks. I could learn quickly. I had that's followed me up to now. Now I have difficulty learning, but then I didn't. You see, everything was very easy to come by, and I didn't have to study too hard.
And when you never got into little devious things, or you just
boy things, what the boys do. We were bullies.
I'm not a boy.
If we walked up and we talked loud to a kid and he took off and started running, we would chase him. Conversely, if one walked up to me and started talking loud and bullying me, I'd take off. That's the way it was.
So then after elementary school, did you go to like a combined junior high school, or was it?
Well, they
separate
didn't have a
schools?
junior high at that time. You went from elementary to high school. And then from high school, you went to college.
What high school did you go to?
McKinley High.
McKinley High.
And that was on, it wasn't North Midway. I don't remember the street now, but it's been so long. But
So did Lawrence and Lois and Leola, did they go to the same schools?
yeah, yeah, yeah. We all went to the same schools. And but when you see when the war broke out with the Japanese, you see a lot of people think that that wars are evil things. But as far as minorities were concerned, that was the greatest thing since red beans. It was, because at that time, segregation was really high, and there was no way could you break the chains that was binding you. I mean, you, no matter what your plight in life was, segregation was a bad thing. And when I went into the Air Force, Army Air Corps, we had the same problem. It was a segregated army. And you see, President Truman was the one who broke up the segregation in the army. He just used what they call executive
Order.
Mm-hmm.
So, what was your father doing when you were growing up? What we talked about that a little bit earlier. You were telling me that I think he said he worked on a railroad, or he worked for a railroad company or lumber company.
Well, he was working at a wholesale company, for a wholesale company called Homes and Barnes, and they were wholesale distributors.
And what did he do for them?
Oh, I don't know, laboring work, whatever it was. The forklifts hadn't come into being at that time. And
So you were the forklift. Everybody was going forklift.
your back was the fork, and your legs were the lift.
And did your mother work at all? Or was
No,
a
she
stay-at-home
didn't
mom?
work. She was a
Stay-at-home mom.
stay home with 4 kids. You know, she couldn't work too much anyway.
So tell me a little bit about what your mom was like. What was it like growing up in that house with?
Well,
were you the youngest or the second youngest?
No, I was second youngest.
Second youngest.
She was firm, no nonsense. And everybody had to do something. They had a chore, you know. Like the girls had to help cook and wash the dishes after dinner. The boys had to sweep. They didn't have vacuum cleaners at that time, so the boys had to sweep the floor and keep the yards clean and stuff like that. Any mopping that had to be done, the boys did that. All the laboring type work around the house, the boys did. The girls, they did the cooking and the washing and the washing the dishes and stuff.
What kind of relationship did you have with your mother?
Very good. When she say, "Who that?" I do that. Yeah.
So would you say that you had a close relationship with her?
Yes, it was very close. When she say jump, I say, "How high, ma'am?" Yeah, we had a very close relationship. At that time, we didn't have television. We had radio. We had a radio. And after dinner, we would all sit around and listen to the news. And that's about the only thing they really had on radio that you could listen to other than music. And
what kind of music did you like growing up?
well, we had the swing bands now. You take the Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Lionel Hampton, Harry James, Benny Goodman. Those guys were real musicians. In fact, you don't hear music like that anymore. You go to one of these record stores and you buy oldies but goodies. They advertise them every once in a while on TV.
So one of the things that I always like to think, and I tell my dad this because he says the same thing to me, but he uses his generation and he tells me they don't make music like that anymore. I like to think that every generation thinks that same thing. So tell us why it is that music was the music and it's gone.
Well, those musicians were more talented. Gene Krupa, for instance, was a drummer. And there's nobody in the world ever played a drum like Gene Krupa. He could take 4 sticks and have them going and keeping time all the time. It's like, what do you call it, when you're juggling? Pulling a juggling act on the drums. He was really great. Harry James, trumpet out of this world. Louis Armstrong, nobody could blow a trumpet like him. Nobody. In fact, he had been over to England to visit the Queen, to play for the Queen. And he got up, during the day, the sun was setting on the ocean, and he sat down and wrote a poem about the sunset on the ocean, transcribed it into music, and that was a famous song for a long time. The sunset on the ocean, way out on the blue. Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about your relationship with your mother. What kind of relationship did you have with your father?
Well, Dad, we had a respectful relationship. He was working all the time. At that time, see, he was working from 7 to 7. People then, those are the kind of hours they worked. They worked from sun up to sundown, about 12 hours a day. And you didn't really see too much of them only on a Sunday, because Saturday they did the same thing. See? But he always would try to instill in us that whatever you got out of life, it would be what you would put into it. In other words, if there was no water in the well, you couldn't get any out. If you put some in there, then you can get some out. And that's the way life was. That nobody was going to give you anything. And he told us to go to school, be sure and get an education. Because in the finality of things, that's the only thing that mattered. And he was right. And I remember I was somewhere, I think it was in Virginia, some university of Virginia, I think it was. In this building, they had this big sign on it that says, prepare yourself, and someday your chance will come. And you know what? That's true. If you're not prepared, you never get a chance.
So why don't you tell us about what would be a typical Sunday for you? So that would be that one day during the week where the family could come together. There wasn't necessarily a list of things that you had to do other than things that were specifically related to the family.
Okay. take Sunday, good example. Get up early Sunday morning, and everybody would take a bath.
What's early in your world?
6 o'clock. We had to get up early because we didn't have in our bathroom where we had to take a bath. We had to take a bath in a foot tub. You know, we didn't have a shower like you guys have, or a big fancy bathtub. We had a wash tub. Same tub you wash your clothes in, you also bathed in that same size thing. And everybody had to take a bath. And we put on our little Sunday go-to-meeting things, whatever they were. And we would go to Sunday school. And after Sunday school, we would go to church. And after church, we'd come home and have a big chicken dinner or a roast or something, but usually chicken. Big chicken dinner. And we take off our Sunday go-to-meeting clothes and play for a little while. And that was the extent of Sunday, the day that we had. Monday, everybody was off to school or off to work. We didn't have museums to visit. We didn't have zoos we could go to, you know. We had theaters, but the kids, we would usually go on a Saturday to the matinee. And that was about it. Play football, baseball, shoot marbles. And we thought it was a good life because everybody was doing it. At that time, your caste system didn't work too well. You either, there were such a few people in the community that had any form of wealth that everybody thought they were wealthy. There was no such thing as a poor person and middle class and, you know, rich and all that sort of thing. That was, if you got into the white community, the ones that owned the businesses, they were wealthy. But even the whites that worked in the businesses, they weren't wealthy. But they were wealthy enough, for instance, to have black maids. Because they would only pay them like 50 cents a day, you know. A guy with an average job making, say, $7 a day, he could afford a maid. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Well, I mean, that's the way life is. It's a rate of progression. You know, for the first 2,000 years after the creation, man degraded down to a point where it had to be destroyed. Starting with Adam. Adam had everything that was necessary for survival. He had all the animals, the lions and the tigers and the snakes and you name it. They were his friends. They were there in the Garden of Eden. And incidentally, man was not made to be a meat eater anyway. He was made to be a vegetarian. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But in that garden, there all kinds of fruit and vegetables was there. Now, we don't know when God made Eve, but there was a long time after he had made Adam because he discovered that Adam was lonely. And he didn't have anything of his kind. He didn't have anything of his kind in the garden to keep Adam company. Adam's friends was the animals, the snakes and the bears and the lions and tigers and all that stuff. And so he put Adam to sleep, in a deep sleep, and he performed the first operation. He took a rib out of Adam and made Eve. And he breathed the breath of life into Eve. And so she became a living soul. You see, animals don't have souls. This is I'm not going to preach to you, but